How you'll do the pictures. Good evening, Ben. You doing okay?
Yeah, good, thank you. How are you?
Baruch Hashem. Okay, Moshe, you'll be in charge of the story. You'll do photography today. We're up to Chofei Amud Aleph. Yes. Everybody's a bit.
This is a highlight of the day.
Yeah, it's shortish, yes. Do you realize all this is being recorded for eternity on YouTube and upstairs? What's happening?
One big mistake.
What's the mistake? Wait a minute. Okay. I'd like to point out that I made a fundamental mistake about the Manchester Eiruvin. That it's much more kosher than I understood. So you're allowed to carry in. You're allowed to carry Maccabi Fields. Why? Oh, at least he's asking to the point instead of getting a thing.
I just believe on whoever's got the shoulders enough.
That's right. Okay, I just say one thing which I was only found out today. I don't carry new, but I found out a very interesting thing. We've been discussing a very lot of Kalfuf. This is what the topic, going on and on about Kalfuf. Oh, very good. And the Kalfuf has to be hukaf ledira. And we were discussing what about those football pitches and the parks, are they hukaf ledira or not? And the answer is that when they set up the Eiruvin, they made a wall around the entire Manchester, made out of Tzorsa Pesach, etc. And that wall was with intention of Dira, in order that people should be able.
Can you carry vegetables and rebuild it?
Oh, but here they did even better. Is that there were certain areas that there was no walls at all, so they actually created. There's no Kalfuf in Manchester, except in areas which are literally impossible to live in.
Right. So like all those forests on the other side of Ferry New Road.
Right. Oh, you misstudied this. I was just saying how wonderful the mayor of Manchester is. And that is, I just wanted to say, because we've talked about this a lot over the show, so I want to say it again. We discussed about Kalfuf and everything else. I spoke to a Rav today, explained to me that when they set up the Eiruvin around Manchester, they did a wall around the whole of Manchester. And it's all considered hukaf ledira, because they did it with intention for dira. So therefore, you're allowed to carry in all these places we discussed before, Broughton Park. Who? Dan who?
No, he wasn't involved, but he had.
Who? Dan who?
Sam wasn't. I don't know how involved he was. But he
Where's that?
I think he was involved earlier on, no?
You can say his name.
I thought.
Okay, anyway, it was all hukaf ledira. So you're allowed to carry Maccabi Fields. Oh, that is the good question. Okay, a proper Eiruvin which has a small area, tiny area, which is unlivable inside. Can you carry there? That's a big shiloh. But Pashas, all these places are livable, and therefore it's okay to carry all these. That means all these questions we had would be if they would only make the Eiruvin. That means, let's say, for example, you go on the holiday and you make your own private Eiruvin in that area, and there's a field coming off, which is not coming off the house, but it's rather another enclosure which is beyond the house. Then you've got the problem of Kalfuf Shlokaf Ledira. But over here, in Manchester, what they did was they made the hukaf, the entire area was Ledira. And they made new walls by Tzorsa Pesach. So it's okay. Okay, we talked about it for a few minutes. Yes, except in a case where a person makes his own private Eiruvin and therefore he's not included. Let's say a person has his own private property and he's got a farm and he's got a field off the farm. So he says to himself, look, I've got that field has got a wall around it. Most fields have a wall. That won't be good because you've not created that wall. Yeah, you have to go for all day. Okay, I don't go too long. We spent quite a long already on this. Let's move on. Okay. The Gemara though continues with this topic which we've discussed for a few days already, and that is a Kalfuf which is lo hukaf ledira. So a Kalfuf shlo hukaf ledira is only permitted if it's got less than Beis Hosayim. So if it's got more than Beis Hosayim and it's not hukaf ledira, it's no good. So you always have to do an option. Either make it hukaf l'tiva or make it less than base osayim. The Gemara now creates all kinds of solutions to this problem. It says more like this. Kalfaf with up to Chof Hey Mudalef, second line from the top. Kalfaf Yosef base osayim. Shaloi hukaf l'tiva. It was no hukaf l'tiva. Good or no good? You're allowed to carry there or not? No. Smaller base osayim, no hukaf l'tiva. So you want to make it smaller. How can you make it smaller? One way is to make the walls, knock down the walls and build a smaller area, but not so easy. So this person wants to make it smaller. How can you make it smaller? By building things inside it. Those things which are built inside it minimize the space. If you want to see, Moshe, you're the gab of the pictures today since Toli has abdicated. If you don't mind adding on pictures, Kuf Tzadik Ches, Kuf Tzadik Tes, Reish, all of them actually. We've got quite a lot of pictures today. All the pictures till from Kuf Tzadik Ches, literally onwards, all the way to Reish Yud Beis. That's 1.5, 2 pages of pictures. Do one by one though, one by one if you don't mind. Okay, if you're finding it difficult, just say so. But Kuf Tzadik Ches, all the way till the end, one by one. So I'm counting on the Shiur, you're going to have to listen while you take a photograph. Again, the Gemara over here wants to make the calf smaller. So how do you make it smaller? So the Gemara says like this. If you plant trees, you have a miyut. That's not a miyut. Can anybody explain to me why not? Why is adding trees not making the area smaller? Very good. Like Shiur says, you can live amongst trees. Trees don't disturb a person from living. So therefore, that's not good enough. But
the whole idea is the reason why it's not good is because you can't live there. I mean, because you're not living there.
That's right. But trees don't disturb you. It's not a small area. If I say to you, I'm selling you a plot of land, it's 2 bases of sand, it's got a tree in the middle. I can't say to you it's less. It's got a tree. But if I put a pillar there, that's picture Kuf Tzadik Ches. You put a pillar in the middle of the base of sign picture. Then have a miyut, that is a miyut. Is the picture up, by the way? Just yeah. Right. So if you put a pillar there, now it's smaller. If I sell you a plot of land, and in the middle of the plot of land there's a big pillar, big stone, you'll say to me, wait a second, you promised me 2 acres. This is not 2 acres. It's got a big rock inside the middle. And the question is, if the rock is less than 3 tvachim, lo have a miyut, it's not a miyut. Why, if it's less than 3 tvachim, is not a miyut? It's not significant. What's the proof it's not significant? Halachic proof. Give me an halachic proof. Less than 3 tvachim is not significant. Because lovud. Anything less than 3 tvachim is considered lovud. So it's less than 3 tvachim is not. If it's a pillar 10 tvachim high, what? 5 lines from the top, 6 lines from the top. Gimel v'adalet, I'm sorry. So again, if the pillar is 4 tvachim, that's definitely a miyut. Less than 3 tvachim is definitely not. From 3 to 4, Rabba Omar have a miyut. That's a miyut, because then there's 3 tvachim, we said. Once something is 3 tvachim, it's not love, it's considered a considerable thing. Rabba Omar don't have a miyut, it's not a miyut. And the more explains. Rabba Omar have a miyut, or not for klimateras lovud. It's not lovud. More than 3 tvachim is not lovud. Rabba Omar don't have a miyut, couldn't have a mokim abba lo yichoshuv. Since it's not 4 by 4, it's not an important place. So again, a pillar, it has to be 10 tvachim high. A pillar which is not 10 tvachim is not considered a pillar. A pillar which is 10 tvachim high and it's 4 by 4, everybody agrees that is a miyut and that limits the area. If it's less than 3 tvachim, everybody agrees that's nothing and it does not limit the area. If it's between 3 and 4, it's a machlokas. We pass in the kula that it is a miyut. Now that is one solution. Another solution you have to this kalf which is more than basis time is, we said before, that you can make a wall and do it hukaf ledira. But one of the things we said, if you remember, is you have to knock down the old wall and rebuild a new wall. Because if you just build a wall next to the original wall, you've done nothing. You can't call it hukaf ledira. Do you remember? Hukaf ledira means that you put a wall up ledira for the sake of living. You can't call it hukaf ledira if there was a wall there and now you make another wall exactly next to it. There's nothing. What would happen if you knock down piece by piece and eventually you knock down 10 amos, build 10 amos? Would you say that's good or not good? The maskana is, it is good, right? It is good because Pon Chadosh will come. So now the Gemara suggests what happens if you put the wall right next to the first wall. That's no good. If you put it at a distance, then of course it's good because you're making a new wall. The question is, let's say it's only a very small distance between the two walls. Is it considered hukaf ledir or not? If you make a distance of 4 tvachim from the original wall and then you make a new wall, that works. That's called hukaf ledir. If it's a distance of less than 3 tvachim, that's nothing. If you make less than 3 tvachim from the original wall, a new wall, that's not a new wall because you're not making it. It's just one on top of the other. From 3 to 4, and the Mog says, if it's more than 3 tvachim away from the original wall, it's not loved, so therefore you're creating a new wall. Since it's not 4 tvachim away, it's not important, and since it's not important, you as if literally just made the original wall wider, and you can't call that hukaf lediva. Says the Gemara. He says that they never argue between 3 and 4, and that between 3 and 4 is definitely okay, but less than 3, that is the machlokas. The machlokas is less than 3, but from 3 and 4, everybody agrees it's okay. Let me just explain, make this more practical. Broughton Park, imagine, without what I said to you before, that they made a whole new area of a wall around Manchester. Imagine you wanted to make Broughton Park permitted, the actual park itself. And you've got a wall, there's a wall around Broughton Park. I'll talk about the actual park, and imagine there's a wall around it. So, was it hukaf ledira? No, it was not hukaf ledira. There's no houses inside Broughton Park, the park itself. Imagine somebody on Oakover, I think it is a water park, opens up a gate into Broughton Park. People have that. Oh, very good. Imagine there wasn't, and somebody, you've got to be accurate, and somebody opens up a gateway into Broughton Park. Does that make Broughton Park permitted or forbidden to carry in it? Why? Very good. That's what I wanted to hear. It's forbidden. Why? Oh, it's hukaf ledira. There's a wall around, and it's for the sake of living because somebody opened up a house into it. The answer is no good. Because when you put up the wall around Broughton Park, there was no houses opening up into it. So therefore it was hukaf, not ledira. Later on, somebody opens up a gate into it and makes it into his own private back garden or his own private access point. Doesn't help. It wasn't hukaf ledira. So what would you have to do to make Broughton Park permitted to carry if a person opens up his back door into a back gate into it? Make another wall. So now what happens if he makes the wall literally at the same place where the original wall is? That's definitely no good. If he makes it at a distance of 4 tvachim, everybody agrees it's okay. Less than that, it's a machlokas. Yes, you could also do that. Knock down the wall and rebuild it. That's even better. That's what we said. 10 amas. 10 amas you have to knock down. 10 amas. Now it was just another thing. Somebody came along and it was a kalfaf which was just over Beis Osayim, and it was not hukaf ledira. Is he allowed to carry in it or not? It was not hukaf ledira, and it's just more Beis Osayim. You're not allowed to. It's more Beis Osayim. So what does he want to do? He still doesn't want to start building a whole new wall. He puts lots of plaster on the wall. Loads and loads of plaster. By the time he's finished putting so much plaster on, so now, or cement, whatever you want to call it, now the area is less than Beis Osayim. So now is he allowed to carry? It's not hukaf ledira, but it's less than Beis Osayim. So this is the next question of the Gemara. If the cement which he added to the wall could stand on its own, have a miut, then now it's considered a smaller area, and now you're allowed to carry. If the cement will not stand on its own, the Maisa, now the wall is thicker and the area is smaller, and therefore you've got less than Beis Osayim. It's nothing. It's like you've got Beis Osayim and somebody, a giraffe, walks in. You say, well, I've not got Beis Osayim now, there's another animal, I've got so much space. No. You've got a Beis Osayim with something inside it, a table inside it, a chair inside it. It doesn't take it to a Beis Osayim. Similarly, when you add cement, and the cement would not stick by itself, it's just because there's a wall there, so that cement does not make it smaller. It's a picture, not a brilliant picture, Kuf Tzadik Tes, where you can see it's an area which is more than Beis Osayim, and somebody plasters on loads of cement. It's not right. So then that is the question as to whether he can can you use that cement to make it smaller? If the cement would stand on its own, so it's considered the whole thickness, and now that it's less than base design. If it would not stand on its own, so it's just literally adding furniture into the area. You can't, by adding furniture in the area, say, well, now it's less than base design. If that plaster will stand, yes, as long as it makes less than base design. Yes. No, as long as you made the area less than base design with a thickness that would stand. A new question, which is the picture of Reish. If you look at the picture of Reish, originally what happened was there was 3 walls and a mound. Can a mound be used as a wall?
If it's more than 10 and 4.
Very good. More than 10 tefachim at the at the distance of 4 amas. That means if it goes up very steep, you can use it as a wall. The problem was that using all those 4 walls is no good. There was a kafir which you couldn't carry it. So came along someone and he built a wall beyond the mound, not on the mound, beyond the mound. Reish, which picture are you looking at? Reish. Within the inside. Beyond an insight. So Mo says, Hilchik v'natela bo. Oh. Hilchik v'natela bo b'os mechitza. It works. Pachas b'shloisha, less than 3. Or as fasatel, or literally on the border of the mound. Of chisva v'nuna. Chadama hoyol, chadama loy hoyol.
It's not interesting. No. Where does it stop? What's the foot of the mound?
When it gets to 10 tefachim. If you put a wall right next to the mound, it's machloikas if it works or not. It says, well, this time, let's prove that Chisda says it's okay. The Eitzman. Oisa mechitza agabe mechitza. A person makes a mechitza literally on top of another mechitza. Omar Chisda b'Shabbos, on Shabbos, you've done, that's considered a proper wall. The halacha is that if a ger dies without Yoshim, that means he never got married and he never had children. So now the ger died without a single Yorush. Anybody who does a kinyan in his property can keep it. Right? It's a gemara which comes up from Beilat and Barakah and other places. So if you know of a ger dying without Yoshim, you should quickly go to his house and make a kinyan. Why ger? Because every single other Yid will always have Yoshim. If not a son, a brother. If not a son or a brother, an uncle. All the way back to Yaakov Avinu. So it's impossible for a person to die without Yoshim unless he's a ger and he has no sons or daughters. Has no sons, no daughters, no wife, no relatives. Then indeed you can be kohen. How are you kohen of property? You make a wall or you do an improvement to the property. You improve the property and then the property becomes yours. So now, said of Chisda, if you build a wall on top of a wall, let's say I hear a ger dying and there's 4 walls around his garden. So I build on top of the wall another wall, that I'm not kohen. Why am I not kohen? I'm not an improvement in this property. Very good. On Shabbos also is not a wall, because at the end of the day, a wall on top of a wall is nothing. So what this time, it's a good ride. Of Chisda says it's okay. Rav Sheshes agrees with me. That's picture Reish Aleph. That is, if you make a mechitza on top of the mound, that works. Everybody agrees if you make a wall on top of the mound, picture Reish Aleph, that works. Why does that work if you make a picture on top of the mound? Because, the Gemara explains, people living on the mound now have a wall which they never had in the past. So therefore, they have a true wall. So that's considered a proper wall. So when the wall is by the mound, on the foot of the mound, or by the edge of the mound, it's nothing. But a wall on top of the mound, well, anybody wanting to live on the mound will now have a wall around him. So therefore, that wall is of value. You seem bothered. This is very straightforward. Says the Gemara, Boy Rabba Bavuna, a person built, according to the man the Omar, that a wall on top of another wall is useless. Not an improvement, it's nothing. Right? According to that man the Omar. Came along a person and built a wall on top of another wall. So, is it done a kinyan? No. Shabbos, no good. Came Shabbos, middle of Friday, Shabbos afternoon, he notices that there's a quicksand or something happened. The bottom wall collapsed. And now the other wall which he built is the only wall which is standing. So do we say, wow, now you've done a good wall? Because if not for your wall, there'd be no wall at all.
As if there was no wall there in the first place. He didn't do it. As if there's nothing there.
Why? You did a wall.
It's like a new wall.
Right, okay, this is a new wall. But who made that new wall? I did. I built the wall. When I built it, it was no good because there's already a wall there. But this wall got swallowed up like the walls of Yericho. So now my wall is the only wall which is around. So what is the din? Can you consider my wall good or not? Someone says, Lamai, what was the shaila about? If the question is, can I now be clean the nichse? Can I do improvement? I heard the girl was dying without Yoshim. So I quickly built a wall, but right on next to another wall. And then that wall collapsed, and now it's only my wall. So Moses says, Hanu do Yumi Biro. That will not work because of Yumi Biro. Omar Yumi Biro, Omar Yehuda. Haiman the Shoda lifter, person threw a turnip, radish, a pillar down the girl. Imagine you see a girl dying. So you quickly want to be clean his garden. So you see there's a little hole in the ground, a crack in the ground. So you throw inside it a turnip. And you think to yourself, wow, I've done a huge improvement to the ground, haven't I? Because now it's going to grow. But also, after, while you're waiting for this turnip to start growing, another Yid comes along, and he starts digging, which is a proper improvement to the ground. Digging makes it more, turning it over. The second one was Kona, the first one was not Kona. Why was the first one not Kona? He threw a turnip into the ground, and that is an improvement. And he more explains, my Tama. The shoda, when you throw a turnip into the ground, local shavach, that's not an improvement. The turnip to the ground is not an improvement. The improvement is not because of you. The improvement happens by itself. How? You never dug a hole. You just dropped it in. And the beginning, nothing happens. Next day, nothing happens. 2 days later, it starts growing roots, and then it starts growing. But who made it grow? Not you. Since you didn't make an improvement in the ground, therefore you are not Kona, and only the second person who dug is Kona. In fact, the Rishonim point out that let's say the second person didn't start digging until after your turnip already grew. Who would be Kona? What would you say? Oh, still the second person who dug. Why? Because you didn't do anything. Whatever you did happened to be made. The improvement was not yours. Therefore, the same thing over here. You built a wall, that was nothing. Later, the other wall collapsed, that wasn't you. So God says, "When in the Shabbos, have a mechitza nasa b'Shabbos." Regarding the Shabbos, it's a wall which was created on Shabbos. But Tanya kom mechitza nasa b'Shabbos v'meshig b'meizet shmo mechitza. So the Gemara says that if I built a wall on another wall collapses, and now there's only got my wall. It's like a mechitza which is created on Shabbos, and that works. We had this a few times. I hope we get it clear like this. That regarding Rishus HaYochid, there are two nafke minutes. One is regarding carrying from Rishus HaRabim into Rishus HaYochid, and one is carrying within the Rishus HaYochid. And the Gemara says, when do we say that a wall which is created on Shabbos is considered a wall? Only regarding carrying the chumrah, that you're not allowed to carry from Rishus HaRabim into Rishus HaYochid. But to carry within the Rishus HaYochid itself and to say, well, now there's a wall which was made on Shabbos is permitted, that is forbidden. So you see that it is also. So the Gemara says, so again, this is very important to say this. We actually discussed this before, but it's mamish nafkin and amaisa. If I build, now imagine on Shabbos afternoon, decide to do an avera. I'm going to build a wall on Shabbos. And I build a wall in the middle of the M62 and I make a nice enclosure, which is Rishus HaYochid. Are you allowed to carry in it? No. That's what the Nachman said. You're not allowed to carry within it. If you carry from Rishus HaRabim into the Rishus HaYochid, what would the din be? You're a chayav. Because even though I shouldn't have built a wall, the mice I built it, so that was considered Rishus HaYochid. If I do it by mistake, for some reason, let's say I'm not aware you're not allowed to build a wall on Shabbos, then I build a wall. You're not only is it considered Rishus HaYochid from carrying into Rishus HaRabim into it, but I'm even allowed to carry within it. If you remember, I once mentioned to you the story of somebody got a child stuck outside on Leicester Road. So they danced. Why did you make them dance? Why didn't you just tell all the people stand next to each other as a mechitza? Because that would be mechitza shenasa v'meizid, which is no good. But mechitza which is done b'shoigig is all right. So if you can get everybody b'shoigig to make a mechitza, it's all right. It's a shig. Nobody knows they're being over said. Nobody's doing an aveos.
Well, the person asked him.
No, he told him to dance. He didn't tell him to carry.
He can't dance.
Nobody's done any
He
aveos.
can't dance.
He can't. Okay, he's only one person. He can't make a mechitza by himself. Again. So now the Gemara Maskana says, if I build a wall on top of a wall, the wall collapses. Now there's only my wall left. It is okay. Why? It's a mechitza which is done on the Shabbos, but mechitza which is done by Shabbos by mistake, because this wasn't done by me on purpose, is a good wall, and if I can carry it within it. That we're proving that the Gabi Nichse Agir, it's not considered a kinyan. Why is it not considered a kinyan? Because it's automatic. You never did it. You never created it. No, that's a very short story. There was that woman. Of the mechitza Gabi Mechitza Nichse Agir, she saw a ger dying, so she built a mechitza on top of another mechitza. Also, Gava Rafak Porta. Another person came to dig. Also, gave it to the man, not the woman. Also, she started crying in front of him. Oh my Lord, my Avid, what can I do for you? She didn't do a normal chazaka. A normal chazaka is to do an improvement. What you did was not an improvement. It's an important message. Sometimes the person comes to base and it sounds like he's crying, and he sounds like, the halacha must be like him because he's begging, and the halacha is not. You didn't do a normal chazaka. Since you didn't do a normal chazaka, so therefore, we can't take it. Therefore, if a person builds a wall, it's not considered chazaka. Okay. So far we've described, you've got a karfaf, which is more than based on sign. So you've got two options. Where if it's not okaflidir, what are the two options? One is to make it smaller. How can you make it smaller? By building blocks of stones inside it, building a new wall closer, etc. Alternatively, it can be hukaflidira. But hukaflidira, you have to build it for the sake of living inside it. That brings another option. Karfaf base sholish. This is picture reish base. And if you can land also reish gimel. What happened was you had a karfaf which was more than base or sign. So in the middle of the karfaf you built a reish base, black and white one for some reason. The karfaf base shalosh, a karfaf which is 3 saw, the kiva boy base saw. So you made a roof over a base saw. Now, there's a machlekes called pi tikra yovid v'soisam. Do we say that a roof is as if it goes down and blocks it? Essentially, look at the picture of reish base if you can. Do we look at it as one very big karfaf, and that very big karfaf is more than sosayim, and therefore you're not allowed to carry anywhere because more than sosayim? Or do we say no? The area under the roof is one karfaf. The area not under the roof is another karfaf, two karfafs. Each one is less than base sosayim, so I'm allowed to carry in both.
Why would you say that when you turned it into a separate?
Because when you've got a flat roof, that when you've got a flat roof, then we look at the roof as if it's a separate area, it's a completely new area.
And the roof has to be separate, right?
Yes.
Under a bridge of a motorway.
Yeah, under the bridge of a motorway. But that, where we don't use it to have mechitzas of Rishus Yochid, it's not always used. But we're here for a calf, which into our bonon could use it. So the verse is like this. Because of the place of the roof, it's considered more than 2 saw, and you're not allowed to carry. You're allowed to carry it because we ignore the area which is roofed. Says they argue the same Shmuel. Imagine you've got a big valley. You're not allowed to carry in the valley because it's a carmelist. And then you go in the valley and suddenly you find, that's picture, Reish Gimel, a huge valley, completely in the middle of nowhere, and it's got like a bus stop or something, or just a tent, or just a roof, a small roof. Are you allowed to carry under the roof? Rav Omar, Mutter Tat V'Kulam, Shmuel Omar, Ein Metat in Ebal Abamas, you're allowed to carry 4 amos because we ignore the fact that it's got a roof. You're always allowed to carry less than 4 amos. Rav Omar, Mutter Tat V'Kulam, we don't Peter Koyer the Seisa. Shmuel Omar, Ein Metat Abamas, no, we don't Peter Koyer the Seisa. We don't say Peter Koyer the Seisa. So the machlokes between Rav and Shmuel as to whether you're allowed to carry in a valley which has got this roof, is exactly the same machlokes as Rav and Rav Zera.
Not really.
Why not?
Because here has you have 3 walls around it.
No, ignore that picture. That's picture Reish Dalet you're looking at.
Imagine a farm.
No, Reish Dalet. Why did you?
Imagine a farm.
No, there. I hear what you're saying.
Like a walls around it.
Here, you say it's a mistake. That it's supposed to be Echsadja in the middle. It's not. We're ignoring the walls. Ignoring the walls.
Look at my space.
Yes,
I
the
picture on.
yes, the picture.
Color it in.
No, we're discussing without the walls. You're right. The way Reish space is not so good.
Left it for you, Moshe.
Yeah, left it for you. Let's like a gazebo a bit.
Yes, please, you're not.
Yeah, let's just see if they've got it. Yeah, look.
100%, because it was talking about the ball.
Yeah, yeah. You see, it's got without walls. It's without walls. It's supposed to be without walls. We're talking about without walls. Okay. So it also like this. The Machlokes Rav and Shmuel, whether Pitiko Yod V'Soisim in a bikah, in a valley, whether you're allowed to go there or not, it's the same Machlokes. Who else is no? If it would be like a flat roof, everybody agrees Pitiko Yod V'Soisim, and would be considered like two kafos to be okay. It was made as a slant, as picture Reish Hey, where it was made as a slant, and since it was made as a slant, that's the Machlokes. Again, no. By Bikah, we were talking about literally without any walls. And Machlokes Rav and Shmuel, whether we say Pitiko Yod V'Soisim to carry in a Bikah. Anything which is not straight is considered slanty. But over here we took. I don't know that. No, it's properly slanty. Reish Hey is properly slanty. Yeah, we're talking about where it's a slant. No. As long as it's slanting, we don't say Pitiko Yod V'Soisim. Since we don't say Pitiko Yod V'Soisim, so again, let's get it clear. If you've got a bikah, and inside the bikah you've got just a roof, it's Machlokes Rav and Shmuel if you're allowed to carry underneath the roof, and we pass it like rather you're allowed to. If you've got a kafuf which is more than base of sign, partly roofed, partly not roofed, it's a machlokes whether we consider like two kafufs or not. We pass it as considered two kafufs is permitted. But when it's made as a slanting, then it's no good, and then we don't say Pitiko Yod V'Soisim, and then you are not allowed to carry in that kafuf. What? Because we don't see Pitiko Yod V'Soisim. Pitiko Yod V'Soisim, the theory of it is that if you've got a flat, bust-up roof kind of thing, we picture it as if that's a person to live. A person wants.
Is there any variation? Either flat or
that's what Levi was asking. What happens if it's only a tiny bit crooked? I don't know. I don't know the exact ramifications of it. Right. The Gemara is now discussing picture Reish Vav. If you want to look at it for a second. So picture Reish Vav, if you look at it, it's a kafuf. And what happened was the kafuf had base or sign. Now, it was a kafuf shloka fladir and it's no good. But it was just under base of sign, so it was okay. So it was just under base of sign, was okay. And then it opened up into a chotzer. And the chotzer, if you add the area of the chotzer plus the area of the kafuf, it's more than base of sign. So would you say that you're allowed to carry or not allowed to carry this kafuf? Let's forget about the wider opening or the narrow opening. Again, you've got a kafuf which is less than base sign. Let's get it clear again. A kafuf which is less than base sign, lo yehukaf ledira, so you're allowed to carry in the kafuf. But what happened was it's opened up into a chotzer. Since it's opened up into a chotzer, add the area space of the chotzer with the area of the kafuf, and then it's more than base sign. Can you carry or not? Now let's see the Gemara inside. In the kafuf, it was. Oh, the Gemara is going to discuss that as well. The Gemara is going to discuss that as well. If the kafuf opens up into a chotzer, it is forbidden. Since you also have the avir of the chotzer, the air of the chotzer, if you add the airspace, the area of the chotzer to the airspace of the kafuf, and now even though the kafuf is less base of sign, but the two together is more than base of sign, therefore it's forbidden. Says the Gemara, that doesn't make any sense. The kafuf you said was less than base of sign. Says less than base of sign, so this should be okay. You've added area of a chotzer. A chotzer, you're allowed to carry in a chotzer. Since you're allowed to carry in a chotzer, so you've got added an area which is permitted. Adding an area which is permitted to an area which is forbidden, there's no way you're going to make the area which is forbidden also. Why should make it also? You're going like Reb Shimon. If you remember, one said that Reb Shimon holds that from a kafuf to a chotzer, you're allowed to carry. Since you're allowed to carry from a kafuf to a chotzer, you should be allowed to carry in this kafuf as well. This kafuf, before the wall fell in, was based aside, which is mutter. Now the wall fell in, you've got a chotzer which is mutter, and a kafuf which is mutter, you're allowed to carry. Now, the Gemara says over here, we're discussing a very, very subtle case, where basically, the kafuf was just under base of sign, literally a millimeter tiny less than base of sign. And now that the wall fell in, the area of the wall became airspace. And now the kafuf itself became more than base of sign. So that is why it's forbidden, not because of the airspace of the chutzah, but rather the area of the karfuf, because the wall has fallen in, is now become more than Beis Hosayim. That's what the Gemara says. And the Gemara proves it. The Omar Chiste, karfuf shnifats b'meloi lechotze, karfuf that opens up into chotze muteres v'karfuf osam. The chotze is mutter the karfuf osam. And the Gemara explains, chotze maitam muteres this gefufe, because it's got small blockages. Meaning, if you look in the picture in Meishvav, the chotze is blocked off a little bit from going into the karfuf. Since it's blocked off, so you're allowed to carry the chotze. In theory, you could have the other way around. Look at picture Reish Zayin. But what happens is the karfuf gets narrower to get into the chotze. So why do you say the chotze is mutter and the karfuf is osa? No, it depends where the walls are. Have you got pictures of it? Yeah, you got it. Now it's also pictures. Where it depends where the walls are. If the walls are in the karfuf, the karfuf should be mutter. If the walls are in the chotze should be mutter. So why do you say the chotze is mutter, the karfuf is osa? So the Gemara says, it depends. When you have a karfuf, which is exactly Beis Hosayim, just under Beis Hosayim, and then you've got a chotze, how big can the chotze be that you're allowed to carry it? What's the maximum size of a chotze? Does anybody know? Very, very good. Hear what he just said? A chotze is unlimited because it's mukaf ledira. If you've got a house like Buckingham Palace, and it's mukaf ledira because Buckingham Palace opens up into the garden, it doesn't matter what size. The chotze, we don't care about the size. The karfuf, we do care. And there was a wall between the karfuf and the chotze. And what happens is the wall fell in. Because the wall fell in, the area of the wall has made the karfuf bigger and the chotze bigger. So the halach is like this. Regarding the chotze, we don't care. Because since the chotze is unlimited, you're allowed to carry in the chotze. But the karfufs become bigger. Now that the karfufs become bigger, you're not allowed to carry in the karfuf. Because now it's more than Beis Hosayim. So that is the end of the sugya. And therefore the Gemara we here originally understood that the issa is because the air of the chotze adds to the air of the karfuf makes it osa. The Gemara says, no, it's not because of the air of the chotze. The air of the chotze doesn't make it osa. The reason why it's osa is because of the air of the wall which fell in. The air of the wall that fell in, that makes it osa. Okay. The next Gemara goes on till about 10 lines into Chavav Dalet, which means that today we'll be doing slightly more than the daf, and tomorrow Mitzvah Hashem will be finishing the perek. It can't stop in the middle, so this is one long story. So the Gemara says like this. Let's look at the picture first, if you don't mind. The picture is... Sorry, I'm sorry, there's two stories, but both stories, we'll have to do both. Let's see it first. Our Bustana, it was like this orchard that was next to a wall of a palace. If you look over here, if you see they're drawing a palace, it's not like the kind of palace that we have nowadays, perhaps. It's a very big house. Can you see it in Ches? And you've got an orchard. Now, Rashi adds in quite a bit, which more doesn't bother to explain. We're talking about a karfuf, which was not hukaf ledira, and therefore you cannot carry in the karfuf. But it had one redeeming factor, that the last wall, the wall of the palace, was built ledira. And since that wall was built ledira, so therefore you are allowed to carry in this karfuf.
It comes off the house.
The wall of the house was built ledira. Since the wall of the house was built ledira, so one of the walls was hukaf ledira, so you're allowed to carry in this orchard. And then what happened was that wall fell in. And the question is, can you use the other wall of the palace, which you can't see on the picture because it's like the further wall, the wall which is further into the house, can you use that wall and to say that wall was also for the sake of hukaf ledira, and therefore you should continue being able to carry inside this, inside the palace? That's the question of the Gemara over here. If you look at the picture of Reish Tes, you can actually see they've done it a little bit, where the outer wall fell, and you've only got the wall further in. And that is the question, can you carry relying on that wall? So also like this. The outer wall of the palace fell. So we can rely on the other wall of the house. Let's just try and imagine this room. I try and make this room is quite a good room to picture it. That's how I tried to imagine. Imagine the base of Medrash was a kalfa, no roof, no walls. It was just an empty lot, which was not hukaf ledira. Then we make this wall hukaf ledira, and now we're allowed to carry where the base of Medrash is. Then this wall falls in, and now you don't have this wall, but you've got this wall. So the question is, can you rely on this wall? So Bibi, the son of Abai, said, yes, you can. To carry in there.
Are we in the house?
Yes.
Yeah, but there's gaps.
Doesn't matter because the wall, that wall didn't fall in. Just this wall fell in. There's no gaps. So the Gemara says, Poppy, since you come from 80, unfortunately, his children have terrible averas, and they were decreed they'll always die young. So since you come from such a terrible family, you say incorrect things. You can't rely on the inside walls. The inside walls were never made for the partner. They were made for the house. And therefore you can't rely on those inside walls to make the kalfa hukaf ledira, and therefore it's forbidden. That's the rules. Another story. Ahu Abovanka. This picture, if you don't want to look at it, Bisat Reish Yud, it's picture Reish Yud Aleph. What happened was a person had a kalfa which was not hukaf ledira, so you're not allowed to carry inside it. In the middle of this kalfa which you're not allowed to carry, he had a very beautiful tree, which people used to sometimes go there to picnic. And around the tree, they built a nice wall to be able to picnic in peace. What happened was the Reish Galusa had that, and he wanted to be able to go from his house to the picnic area on Shabbos and to take with him his food. So he asked an Amoira to make it permitted. Now, if you look carefully in the picture, you have to look very carefully. What the Amoira did is he put sticks at 3 tefachim spaces. Can you see it on the picture? Tiny thin sticks to make it that you can go directly from the house through the walls made out of these konim, of these reeds, put less than 3 tefachim apart, all the way into the picnic area. That's what he did. So it's also like this. Reish Galusa had this picnic area for Bustane in his kalfa, which was forbidden. I want to go and eat bread there. Since I want to eat bread there, make it permitted. He went and he put sticks at less than 3 tvachim intervals in order to permit the Reish Galusa to take the food to eat by this picnic area. Ozal Vova went, top of Chavova Mdalef, Sholfinu, he pulled out all the sticks. Why? Rova held that since there was a tree there and there was a wall around the tree, therefore the whole area, the entire area was permitted to carry everywhere, the entire kalfa. And since you're allowed to carry in the entire kalfa, you don't need these sticks. So therefore, since you don't need these sticks, so therefore what he did was he pulled them out. Also, Papa of Yeshua, the Talmidim of Rova, the Papa of Huna went, they took the sticks away that nobody should try and rebuild it. That means they wanted to make sure that Rova's halacha would stay still and that people should know that it's permitted to carry in the entire kalfa. So therefore what he did was they took away the sticks that nobody should be able to then rebuild. It was forbidden to carry in this kalfa. And because of that, the Reish Galusa actually could not have the picnic that Shabbos. Why? Because Rav had pulled out the sticks. Rav Huna went and hid the sticks, and they only realized on Shabbos that there was a problem. So therefore, in the end, it didn't work out. The Gemara is now going to bring 3 proofs that Rav was wrong. What did Rav say? Rav said that if you've got a kalfa which is lo hukaf ledira, and if you can't carry in the kalfa, as long as there's a tree there, and the tree is encircled by a area of wall, which is made for a picnic area, therefore the entire kalfa is permitted to carry. Says the word that's not true. The next day on Shabbos, Ravina asked Rava, we're discussing now a Ruvei Tchumin. How far are you allowed to walk from a Tchum? From where do you measure? Edge of the town. What's the edge of the town? So what happens if you've got houses and then a wall? Do you count from the houses? Do you count from the wall? What would you say? Oh, the Gemara says like this: if you first build the houses and then you build the wall, so the wall was made for a real reason, and if you count from the wall, If you make a wall and only later you build houses, that wall was never really made for any real reason, and if you count from the houses. That's a good question. I don't know offhand. I don't know how often you have that. I don't know. So what's like this? Ir Chadash, we'll come to it in a minute. Esav Nolova, Ir Chadash, Moedin Lami Yeshivasa, from the houses. V'yeshana Odor Michaymasa. And the more explains, Ezer Chadash, Ezer Yeshana. Chadash, you want hook for, first you put a wall around it with Seif Yashva, then you put houses. Since you only put the houses later, the wall is insignificant, and therefore it's no good. Yeshana, old one, Yashva will say Hukva. First you put houses, then you put a wall. So therefore, since you first put houses and then you put a wall, so the wall is for the sake of the houses. So therefore, you count 2,000 amas from the wall. Similarly, they said to him, this kalfaf, you put a wall around the kalfaf before there was a tree. So this kalfaf was forbidden to carry. At a later stage, you put in the tree and the picnic area. You can't now say that I've got a picnic area, that the walls of the kalfaf should be good. Of course you can't. It's like building houses, it's like building a wall and building houses. So therefore over here, it's no good. So therefore, over here you added the picnic area. Had you first made a picnic area and then made a wall around the kalfaf, okay, you can say that the wall around the kalfaf was for the sake of this picnic area. But here you first made the picnic area and then you make the wall. So that's no good. It's like building a house. It's like building a wall and then building houses. It's useless. The most dynamic hook for Seif Yoshua, it's like first you build a wall and then you put a living place. That was one question. The second question they asked Rabba, in the olden days when builders would build, they would build themselves a very, very temporary shelter for working in the sun. Such a wall was not considered a wall. Why? Because it was only for a very short.
BT's boots after the house.
I never noticed.
Plastic.
BT booth, a small booth which is made just to protect from the sun. So since it is it's from the rain, is right. Here it's from the rain. The nice, they're not considered a wall. Why are they not considered a wall? It's too temporary. These walls, which they made around the picnic area, the Gemara says they only would build them for a day, then they'll knock them down. So these walls are also temporary. I'm not good. The wall. I'm giving it new Sabida law system made just for a short time of modesty. I'm mechitza. And finally, a mechitza which is made just for storage. He would make lots of different Eiruvin for mechuzah, because of the holes which they use to store the dates of the ox. We'll explain it in a minute. But the period of was only made for storage. The Lemaisa, these mechitzas which were made out of the picnic area, Rashi says, why did they make these walls? For people to leave the food and their clothes in a sheltered area. It wasn't to live in. So therefore, these mechitzas were no good. The Gemara says 3 reasons why Rava's idea that the picnic area makes the entire kalfa permitted to live in. One is that the picnic area came later. Number 2, it's only made temporarily. 3, it's only made for storage, and therefore it was no good, and you are not allowed to carry the kalfa. So the Reish Galusa could not eat in the garden that week. Reish Galusa said about them, they only know how to call trouble, they don't know how to help. Why? Because they didn't come up with the problems on Friday and then put back the sticks and then help me be able to carry. But rather what they did was only on Shabbos, when it was too late, did they come up with the halachic issues and then stop me. And it was all frustrated. Now, briefly, the Gemara mentioned a story of Rava. And this is picture based, and it's very fundamental. Basically, if you look at it very carefully, there's brown stretches of long brown channels, long brown ditches. These ditches were places where people used to store their date pips. Those days, people like to eat dates, a very lot of dates. And date pips are very, very nutritious for horses and cows. So they used to store them inside the village. Big, long ditches of these date pips. And they would build the walls around them. Why? To protect them from thieves, that nobody should ever steal the date pips. If you ever read Go My Son, there was a time when they would suffer from mosquitoes. The only thing that got rid of mosquitoes was dung from camels and donkeys. And one night he broke into somebody's house out of sheer desperation to steal dung, and the person had a shot at him and missed him, luckily. And he realized, imagine being killed. He's thinking, well, he had fallen to it. First, you need what you need. So they had walls to keep the date pips safe. Now, if you look at these walls, the right at the ends, these walls should make the entire town a good Eruv. Why did Rabbi need to make a new Eruv? Why did Rabbi need to make a new Eruv? There are walls around the date pips, and the walls around the date pips, they should be good enough as a mechitza and nefesh good Eruv. Answers the Gemara that the walls were made only for storage. Walls made for storage are not considered walls. Since not considered walls, so therefore he had to make a separate Eruv for each different community and make a new mechitzas for them. He couldn't rely on these walls. Similarly, over here says the Gemara, these mechitzas which were used for the picnics when they're good, and since when they're good, therefore going back to picture Reish Yud Aleph, you've got this like stone wall around the entire Kalfa if it's no good. Or you've got a picnic area which got these wooden walls. Those wooden walls are only made for storage, and therefore you were not allowed to carry to the Kalfa, and therefore the Reish Galusa could not come out that Shabbos to eat his meal. Okay, we're stopping over here. Went a bit longer than usual, so that. We're now up to Omar Beloi. Tomorrow we'll finish the perk, we'll start the next perk. We need to decide on Friday as to whether it's before Shachris or after Shachris. People already got school. I personally prefer, I'm not sure. I think after Shachris, though it will be a bit knap because it's like a short time. What time is Shachris on Friday? 7:25. Those who are going to come, those who are going to come should please notify Tolly as to what. Those who are going to come, you will come. And when will you come? Before or after?
Whatever it is.
Right.
So they make again an early minyan.
You'll come what?
I prefer after. Oh wait, no, I don't prefer after. It's no good. After's never going to work.
Why?
Because I won't be able to do after. I should be before, but not after. I've got to be home.
Tell you also prefer before.
Four, yeah.
By the time I get home, it's 8:35. 8:40. Yeah, I've got to do it.
20 to 7, maybe.
Right, okay, so 6:45 will be Shiur on Friday here. With Hashem. Shiur will be at 6:45. Please let everybody know, yes? And on Shabbos afternoon is 6 o'clock. Okay.
There's other Shiurim going on.